Okay, and with Cloud Kingdom out of the way, we're on to Lost Kingdom. And this is probably seen as one of the scariest kingdoms in an 80% run that's on pace, if you will. Because this kingdom is covered in a liquid that will instantly kill you if you touch it, and it's protected by a bird that will swoop at you and attack you and steal Cappy from you if you get too close, or step on the wrong thing, or touch a pole and then touch somewhere that's normally safe. It's a real lovely kingdom, okay? 10 out of 10. There are things that we can do to mitigate this damage, if you will, and avoid as much of this nonsense as possible. So let's get started. So once you skip through all the cutscenes, you're going to be met with a scenario similar to the beginning of the game, where you actually have to press the B or the A button to make Mario jump up from a idle, I don't know, knocked out pose, if you will. And you can actually do this before you can even see Mario. So after skipping the cutscenes, make sure you're mashing that B or A button so that Mario wakes up straight away. Then mash through all the Cappy text, and this is where it gets difficult. As I mentioned before, this kingdom is guarded by a bird known as Klepto that makes routing in this kingdom a little bit difficult, because it means right at the beginning we kind of have to do some movement to get up to a safe position where Klepto won't actually be triggered, allowing us to get some moons and then also get Mario in a position to then like knock out Klepto, if you will. We'll go over it when we get there. For now, begin roll boosting forward, position Mario here in between these two trees, and adjust your camera to face the tree closest to the edge of the ledge. We're going to be using this tree and its leaf to get up to that safe area that I was talking about before. And to do that, we're going to do something that can be a little bit difficult for people just starting out. So let's dig into this. You're going to ground pound, throw Cappy towards the tree and dive onto this leaf. Then jump in place, move forward, and do a double and then a triple jump off the edge of the leaf while heading sort of upright towards the ledge in the distance. Once you hit the maximum height of Mario's triple jump, this is important, you're going to cap throw forward, and you're going to dive. You're going to delay for just a second, not all too long, then throw out Cappy again and dive towards the platform. Getting the height and distance for this trick, which is promptly known as meme tree, can seem a little bit foreign to people when they're starting out, because delaying cap dives and waiting until the maximum height can kind of go over one's head as it doesn't really seem all that intuitive at first glance. But if you really just watch what Tyron is doing and like when in the movement Tyron is diving or cap diving, it is pretty apparent when Mario is hitting the apex of his jumps and just how much he's delaying before the final dive at the end.
If you have trouble setting up a triple jump here, there is also a method where you can hold out Cappy and then walk into Cappy to vault off of him instead. Whether or not you choose to do this is completely up to yourself, so, you know, there's no harm in testing what you find comfortable. Also, I should mention, if you're in the dive and you notice that you don't quite have enough height to make it onto the top platform, you can actually bail out and dive onto this platform on the left to try and save yourself so you don't end up bonking and then falling all the way to your death. If you can't do this jump, there is an alternate way to get up top using some trees in the cage that contains a moon a little bit further forward. I don't necessarily recommend doing this because to make that version of the route quote unquote faster, if you will, it requires a little bit of a reroute for Lost Kingdom to pick up a different moon. We're not really going to be going into that here. It is an option, but honestly, you're probably better spent just getting this down pat and learning this, because while it seems a little bit fruitless and a bit pointless, it does give you some baseline knowledge for these principles that I'm talking about. You know, cap diving at the height of Mario's jump, etc., etc. And these things do become very important the faster and faster you want to go. So really, the earlier you can learn them, the better equipped you're going to be in the future, if that's how far you want to take Odyssey. Then once you land on the platform, roll boost once, and then long jump, cap dive, and then cap throw and dive again to safety. Then ground pound this glowing spot on the floor to activate the moon. And once you grab the moon, cap dive behind you, and then dive up to this first platform, then jump up, cap dive, and dive up to the second platform. Position yourself at the edge of this platform here, throw out Cappy towards the butterfly, and wait for Cappy to reach his maximum length, and then shake to home into the butterfly. We've gone over this before, but just as a little refresher, if you wait until Cappy is at the maximum length that he can be thrown out before you shake, he will be able to home into things that are just a little bit further away. Then as the moon is spawning, just jump towards it and dive into it. Then long jump off the platform towards the bottom right. Swing the camera back around with the bumper button press. And then just simply aim towards the moon so that you long jump into it. After you've grabbed the moon, you can just cap dive and dive behind Mario towards this middle platform. And then once you're towards the edge of it, just long jump towards this other spinning platform, cap dive towards the center, and ground pound the center to spawn in the moon. Then if you're on a similar cycle here with these platforms, you can throw out Cappy towards the edge of the platform away from camera at the moment, I guess. Straight ahead, if you will. So that after you've grabbed the moon, you can simply walk into Cappy to get a vault, then just cap diving and diving into the moon. If you're not on a similar cycle here, you can actually just like get up here with a normal cap dive and dive, or just come out of a ground pound on the floor. It really doesn't matter, but if you are on this cycle, doing a cute little vault is kind of fast and makes you feel kind of cool, doesn't it? But after you've grabbed this tree moon, throw Cappy towards the bottom right on your analog stick and then just simply dive. Then swing the camera back around with the bumper button. And here is where we're going to trigger klepto. I mentioned this before. Basically what we're doing is we're heading up these steps here towards the top, and you'll hear that audio cue play, that rising crescendo. That basically means you've put klepto in a state where he thinks that you've like beaten him the normal way, if that makes sense. So as long as you hear that audio cue, you're basically safe to touch anywhere in the kingdom without triggering klepto. This of course doesn't count if you then die and respawn. You have to go and trigger klepto again, but as long as you stay alive for the rest of Lost Kingdom, you can basically touch anywhere without worry. Again, you don't have to make klepto move. As long as you hear that audio cue, you're good. Then long jumping off the top of those stairs and then landing on this little circle platform, jumping, and then cap diving and diving onto these stairs, ground pounding to swap their orientation, and then collecting the moon that you now have access to that was hidden in the staircase. Once you come out of the stairs, let this trapedal walk over a little bit so that you can get a better angle with the upcoming movement, and then throw Cappy into it so that it grabs it, and then position yourself in front of these blocks, but a little bit more towards the left, basically making a straight path for the trapedal to crash straight into the top left block in this instance that contains the moon. Then while that's spawning, you can jump over the edge here to grab another moon that's hidden from view. Then once you land, backflip and dive back up top, swing the camera back around with the bumper button, and dive into the moon. We're almost done. Throw Cappy behind Mario and instantly dive. Get over to this block here and ground pound it.
This is the stone cage moon. We're gonna grab this one hidden behind the wall, then exiting the stone cage, coming over towards the edge of this platform here, and then long jumping past the edge, cap diving towards the moon, and then making sure to neutral bounce in place so that we're not getting too close to the wall. Then we can position ourselves closer to the moon as we begin to fall to easily cap throw and dive into it. Doing a neutral bounce here also slows your momentum down a little bit, which helps you easier set up for this moon so that you don't dive too early and bonk into the wall or anything ridiculous like that. But then once you've grabbed the moon under the bridge, you can simply fall into the death liquid. And then once you respawn, you can jump, throw Cappy towards the globe, wait until Cappy's at the max range again, and simply shake the globe. And that's it. You've made it out of the literal Death Kingdom. Congratulations. Let's get the hell out of here. When it comes to improvements for Lost Kingdom, there are actually quite a few options at your disposal, ranging from simply improved movement all the way up to, advanced strats that you can implement if you want to go that tiny bit faster. Today we're going to look at a few upgrade steps that people normally take for Lost Kingdom. This kingdom always kind of interests me quite a lot when it comes to optimizations. The movement is kind of cool and the strats are kind of fun, so hopefully you feel the same way. First thing we're going to look at is simply some improved movement for the beginning section, which utilizes a Cappy return jump off the leaf of the tree instead of setting up for a triple jump to go that extra bit faster. Next up, we have some slightly improved butterfly movement, where instead of hesitating and waiting around, we're heading directly for that butterfly. More direct lines, saves more time. This next clip utilizes two separate things that end up saving time over the beginning section. So the first section here, as you'll notice, requires a roll cancel to head directly towards the moon that's in the stairs. Most might find this a little bit uncomfortable, so this is probably the one that I would say, you can do, but it's not necessary. But the second thing that we're going to look at is setting up after throwing Cappy at the trapedal, so that once it crashes into the block, you can just instantly jump and dive towards the moon over the edge. Doing movements like this, where instead of waiting for something to happen and then waiting a little bit and then making an action, and instead more preemptively making movements, ends up saving a lot of time over the course of the entire run. As you can see here, it saves quite a bit of time. Obviously, we're not talking like multiple seconds or anything like that, but these things are relatively easy to implement once you get comfortable with the game and end up saving a lot of time once stacked up. Then directly after that, we have an alteration to the route, where instead of getting the cage moon, we actually crash open the cage and jump off of another tree leaf to end up getting that caged moon. This altered route is faster, and it also ends up setting you up perfectly for one day if you ever want to improve even further and do what's known as cage triple. So all around, this is just recommended and isn't all that difficult to implement. Then next up, of course, we do have cage triple. I have a video all about this strat that's been up on the channel for a while that goes super in depth on how to perform this trick. But ultimately, it's just about using Mario's momentum to continue forward and end up at that cage just before the trapedal hits so that it crashes open and you're right there for the moon. This strat is rather difficult and is more of like a advanced strat, if you will, maybe. So this isn't really something that I would be pushing for people to learn as soon as possible, but it's good to know that it is an upgrade path that you can move into if you're looking for it. And then I also have a comparison clip here between the pass section and cage triple as opposed to the stone cage moon, just to see how much time it saves over both of those routes. And then last but not least here, we have the altered route where instead of just falling to our deaths and death warping, we come out of that bridge section, end up back on top, and roll towards the globe. Neutral bounces help quite a lot here. I think that's probably the biggest focus if you ever want to try and learn this. But really, it's all about the angles and making sure you don't get too close to that wall and bonking into it. I'm not going to go super in depth on how to perform this here, but if you are looking on a play-by-play on how to perform this movement, I do recommend checking out my Improve Your Lost Kingdom video. I go over a lot of the things we talk about in this video there, as the routing for Lost Kingdom doesn't really change all that much, and a lot of the strats actually
actually kind of similar. They're just a little bit faster than what you would do in a beginner way. But that's all from me today, gamers. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, do consider checking out the links in the description for my other socials, Twitch, Discord, etc., etc. Consider hitting the subscribe button, you know, help out the channel, etc., etc. Check out Tyron's links that are also down there, and any other links that I add to help you on your Super Mario Odyssey speedrunning adventures. I'll see you guys in Metro Kingdom. For real this time. No clickbait.